everyone. Okay, so first of all, thank you so much to everybody who took a little bit of time and answered my survey about what you wanted to do in art for our last few weeks together. If you didn't answer the survey, you can still totally do it. I'll make sure I put the link in OneNote. And for a few folks who tried last week and it didn't work, I'm so sorry. I had it set so that only people from Lakehead University could answer it, but that is fixed and it should totally work now because a few classmates have actually done it. And the results were unanimous. Everyone who answered the survey wanted to learn more about photography. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. And we're going to talk about a specific kind of photography called macro photography, which is really just a fancy way of saying close-up photography. I picked this one for a couple of reasons because I think it's a really fun way to use a camera, and I think it's a great way of exploring the world around us in a way where we might notice things or notice details or notice perspectives that we might not otherwise see. It's also fun because you don't need anything except for a camera and any objects really to photograph. I'm going to show you some photographs that I took, and I took these just today. I took them in my house, although mostly I took them outside because the sun came out this afternoon and I thought, geez, I want to get outside. And that was something else that people said that they were interested in was doing art outside. So I thought this was a great way to do that too. So I just took a little wander around my backyard and around my neighborhood, and I found some things that might otherwise look pretty normal, but by getting close up to them and using interesting angles and thinking about things like color, right? Contrasting color, thinking about lines, thinking about textures, thinking about composition, so thinking of my rule of thirds. I was able to make some I think pretty cool photographs out of just everything, any everyday thing that you might find. I really like taking photographs of plants and flowers, partly because they don't move, so I have lots of time to photograph them. But you can really take pictures of anything. You can take pictures of people if you want, but they got to be close-ups. It's got to be someone who's okay with having a close-up photo, or animals, or even just objects in your house. Anything that you'd like to photograph. And I know not everyone has access to a camera, and I have a fancier camera, but today I just use my iPhone and the camera on it to take these pictures. And if you don't have access to a phone, or you're not interested in taking some photographs this week, or phone or camera, you can use any camera you want. There's another option that I'll go over both of the options at the end of the little slideshow. I'm just going to show you of the pictures that I took today. Okay, so macro photography, like I said, is a way to use a camera to see the world through a different lens. And the word macro actually means big. So it's about seeing small things in a big way. So actually the definition of macro photography is just photography producing photographs of small items larger than life size. So we're looking at things close up in a way that we wouldn't normally. So I'm going to share just a couple pictures. So like I said, I just kind of went for a little walk around the back laneway at my house and in my backyard and a few items inside my house, and tried to find some things that might not seem like they'd be super interesting photographs. Like this one here, there was this fence in one of my neighbors, going to my neighbor's backyards, and I thought that the hinges were actually really cool, these long triangles, and so I took a photograph at an interesting angle, close up, focusing on those hinges, using my rule of thirds, right, making sure that the object of the photograph is not quite in the center, and using lots of interesting lines to create this photograph. Here's another one. There's just a building with a boarded up window close by my house. And I thought, oh, actually that this could make some really interesting lines and textures. So I got close up and used an angle looking way up into the sky, so you get a little slice of sky, and you can see that texture from the brick and a little bit of texture from the wood. And again, we can see some nice lines to create a more interesting photograph. Here's another one. There's some grass and a red shed, and I thought that the green of the grass and the red of the shed would make a really great contrast. So I got down low and I took a photograph of that green grass with the red shed behind it. And this is maybe one of my favorite photographs that I took today. I thought it turns out really cool. The other thing that's really fun about doing macro photography is they would often end up with an image that's really focused in the forefront or the foreground of our photography, and then what's in the background is a little bit blurred. So I like that the grass is really in focus, and the red, you can still see the texture a little bit of the wood, but it's a little bit fuzzy. Some dandelions in the back laneway. But I thought, hey, if I get down and get a different angle, and again, use this sort of like having something really in crisp, sharp focus at the very foreground of my image, and then the background just naturally becomes blurred. And if you're using an iPhone, it's really easy to just to do that. You just tap on the area that you want to focus, and it will focus in on it. And I really love that you can see all the little seeds in this dandelion. And then again, I like the sort of fuzzy images in the background. And then there's my little sliver of garden. I'm a beginning gardener, so I'm just figuring things out, but I put a few plants in there and did some weeding, and when I was weeding, I found these beautiful little lilies of the valley, and so again, I really liked the texture behind, this like wood texture behind the flower, and I just thought that these little flowers were such cute little bells that I needed to take a picture of them. And then last but not least, inside my house, my partner gave me these beautiful flowers the other day, and they look beautiful even like this, but if we get really nice up and close in them, you can see the sort of like geometric pattern of the petals, and I think it really creates a much more interesting photograph. So those are just a few of the photographs that I took today, just wandering around. And so you have some tasks that you can choose from. If you'd like, you can also do some photography in the first option. So you can experiment with macro photography. I'd like you to spend some time playing around with macro photography or just taking close-up pictures of things. Some tips if you decide to do this while you're taking your photos are to try and think about interesting angles. So looking at things in a way that you might not normally do. A really good way of doing this is getting down low, like I did when I photographed those dandelions or the grass. Watch out for your shadow. So depending on where the sun is, you might need to position yourself so that your shadow isn't in the photograph. Pay attention to color, right? So having high contrasts of colors can often be really nice, although sometimes having a monochromatic image, if you're doing that on purpose, can also be really interesting. Pay attention to interesting textures and lines. Think about the rule of thirds, right? So think about where you're positioning the object in your photograph, although you don't always have to follow the rule of thirds, but it's something to keep in mind. And like I mentioned before, one that I didn't actually type here, but I'd like to add is that think about the foreground and the background of your photograph. So think about where you want the focus to be. What part of the photography do you want to be in focus? And so after you've played around with some photography, I'd like you to choose a few, at least two, but please send me more if you'd like, of your favorite pictures to share. So I just want to see some of the photography that you've done. If you're not interested in taking photography or taking some photographs, or you don't have a tool to help you with that, then not to worry, there's another option. In this option, you're just going to view some macro photography. So in OneNote, I'm going to share some links to a few galleries with a whole bunch of really amazing professional quality macro photography. So this is way cooler than the stuff that I did. And so even if you're not going to do this option, you might want to look at some of these galleries because there's some really, really cool photography there. And I want you to choose 2 pictures, and for each picture I want you to just, number 1, tell me why you like it. Why did you pick that out of all the pictures that you could find? And number 2, describe what you notice about the subject, so that's what the photograph is of, that you might not see when you're looking at it normally. So I have an example here. The picture at the bottom of my screen is those are actually little pieces of pepper. Those are peppercorns and grains of salt. And when I look at it in this picture, I can really notice how the grains of salt are actually perfect little cubes. And normally when I'm sprinkling salt on my food, I wouldn't notice that. Also, just a really cool texture on the peppercorns is something else that I might not notice when I look at pepper in my pepper grinder or my pepper mill. So what is it that you can notice from this macro photography that you wouldn't normally take take notice of in your everyday life. Okay, so that's it for this week. I'm really excited to see what you come up with. I always love either hearing what you have to say about art and seeing the art that you choose, or seeing the art that you create. And just a reminder, we've only got 2 weeks left after this week. Something that folks did say that they were interested in doing was learning a little bit more about creating realistic drawings. So that might be what we do next week, but I'm going to wait to decide for sure until folks get another chance to do that survey in case more people want to do something different. So I'm going to wait and see. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what you send me. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you later.